Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
So we talk about celebrating the creation of the world on Rosh Hashanah. But Rabbi Yehoshua teaches us that the world was actually created in Nisan. So on this day, we celebrate the creation of our world, our relationships, and our actions, our humanness, and the imperfection that comes with it. In this parasha, Genesis 21, verse 1 through 34, Sarah has just given birth to Yitzchak, a miracle in their lives because she never believed that she would bear children. She saw Ishmael playing with Yitzchak and she became upset. It's unclear from the text why exactly she became upset. Some extrapolate from the language that perhaps he was doing something inappropriate with Yitzchak, his younger brother. Now, Ishmael was about 16 when Yitzchak was born. And I imagine he was tall and probably really starting to look like Abraham. He was clearly a man, and in that moment, I believe Sarah's fears were being realized. Back in Genesis 16, Sarai, not yet Sarah, gave Hagar to Avram to conceive an heir. I repeat, she gave Hagar to Avram to make babies. And this notion should give a conscientious and critical listener pause. The biblical scholar Tikva Freimer-Kensky, Zichrona Livracha, points out that neither Sarah nor Abraham nor the ancient texts obtain the slave's consent. Using another person's body as a surrogate for one's own is part of the fabric of slavery. The womb, like the muscles, could be utilized for the good of the master, end quote. So, Sarah proposed to be built up through the actions of Hagar's womb. But when Hagar conceived, the text says that Sarai was lowered in esteem in the eyes of Hagar. And this gets repeated to Avram. This is such a human thing to do. We feel a certain way, and then we project our feelings onto someone else as their own feelings. And then, because Sarai perceived a threat, she abused Hagar. But was she really lowered in Hagar's esteem? Remember the incident with the spies in the book of Numbers. We were like grasshoppers in their eyes. In that moment, they perceived their own inferiority instead of trusting in what God had already told them. Here too, Sarai is perceiving a threat to God's promise that she will bear an heir for Avram. In Ishmael, she can see Avraham, but she can also see Hagar. And so Hagar and her kid must go. This hurts my heart, but I understand the humanness of it. Hagar felt that finally she would be raised in esteem. And Sarai, instead of seeing Hagar as an equal, felt that if Hagar were raised, that must mean that she's being lowered. And I see this same dynamic playing out in the racial disparities in America right now. Because the country and our relationships are also built on slavery. In America, slavery was the plan. The white people would be built up through the actions of the slaves. But the personhood of African heritage people got in the way of those plans. Freedom for African heritage people messed up that plan because the white people were lessened in the eyes of the former slaves, or so they perceived. And not lessened as in looked down on, really, but lessened from superiors to equals. This is so complex, both for us and here in our Torah. So I'm going to be unpacking more of this thought in TBZ's Racial Justice Working Group's newly relaunched blog. You can check happenings for the link. And the consequences of American slavery playing out today will be explored in a 3-part seminar with TBZ member Professor Jerry Levine in a session called Reconstruction in America, Racial Violence After the Civil War, and the striking connection to our current situation in the United States in 2020. And Jerry wanted everyone to read this book. So he lovingly purchased a copy for every TPZ member, and you can stop by and pick one up, or we'll mail one to you. But for today, from this reading, we take something very important. I am called to the Torah as Bat Sarah Imenu, the daughter of our spiritual mother, Sarah. I love her Torah, and her deeds of kindness. But I also see her as an imperfect human, like we all are, capable of jealousy and influenced by our egos. Sometimes Torah comes to show us the mistakes and the humanity of our ancestors. We can't always right their wrongs, but we come to trust that through us, teshuvah is possible and that it will happen. So on this day, we pray and commit ourselves to the process of teshuvah, to returning to the desired at-one-ment, the desired unity of our Creator, and the sacred equality of all humanity. Shana Tova.